I'm going to do an outtake show someday. It's like,
Sounds good.
are the wheels turning up here? I don't know yet.
Right.
You're watching On the Issues with Chris and Mike, a speakeasy conversation brought to you by CooleyConservatives.com.
All right, welcome to Cooley Conservative, the Speakeasy Conversation. I have my friend Mike Huebsch here for another On the Issues with Chris and Mike. Hello, Mike.
Hi, Chris. Great to be back.
How's it going? It's been a month now.
It has been a month. It's been, as is always the case with Donald Trump as president, it's been a remarkable month, very active month. I think he's having one of the best, the first 8-10 months of this this administration has got to be one of the most amazing foreign affairs time of any president. I mean, it's amazing all the things that he's been able to accomplish.
And as we're recording this, he's in Asia right now, cutting some pretty significant deals.
Yeah, big time. I mean, the tariffs, the tariffs are working. I don't know how long he's going to sustain them. And frankly, it's one of those things where you use them as long as you have to use them.
Yeah, exactly.
If you're going to be a jerk to us, we're going to put tariffs on you.
And the revenues keep flowing into Washington, even though the government is closed.
Yep.
And that, I think it has to do a lot with the tariffs.
Absolutely. Yeah.
No, good stuff. And then obviously one of the things that the president doesn't really have any control over, but I definitely want to talk to you about, we had the Brewers in the playoffs.
Yes.
And just last night, as we're recording this, the Packers beat Aaron Rodgers and the Steelers.
I know. And I was sure, so going into that game, my prediction was 31-17 Steelers. I was like, I'm still stinging from the Browns game, the Cowboys tie. Arizona was okay. But then I was thinking, there are 4 quarterbacks in NFL history that have beaten all 32 teams. If Aaron Rodgers beats Green Bay, now that's 5. And looking at legacy, long-term legacy, I was thinking there's no way that Aaron Rodgers is going to let the team lose. I mean, he wants to be one of those 5.
Yeah.
And which by the way would have meant that 2 of them would have been former Packer quarterbacks, because Favre's one of the others. But boy, after the first half, I was like, okay, it sounds about the way I thought it's going to go. And then the second half was one of the best halves for a Packer team that I've seen in a couple of years. I really was very impressed.
Yeah. How about this Tucker Kraft?
Oh,
he is having a heck of a year.
He is. Yep. Yeah. And it's one of those where you've got a great connection, much like, the big connections, Tom Brady, Gronk, and Kelsey and Mahomes, just those connections between your tight end that it's one of those where they run a couple of plays to Tucker. They know that they're going to do that, but the best is when he's the outlet.
Yeah,
it's like, okay, my deep threats aren't working. I'm going to dump it off to Tucker, and he's going to run for 30 more
yards after carry.
Yeah,
big time yak.
Yeah, big time yak. He's something.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
Yep.
Looking at my list here, the Brewers in the playoffs.
Yeah,
that was pretty interesting. What was it? Yeah. Since 1982, we haven't been in a World Series, and unfortunately, we're not going to have another one.
No, I thought those first 2 nights, I have not seen pitching like that. And I don't know if it's our hitting and our inability to hit them, but those first 2 nights, they could have gone with 2 complete games. The second night with Yamamoto, the manager figured it out and said, all right, I'm gonna leave him in there, because when he pulled Snell, I think was the first
Snell
night.
was the first night, yeah.
When he pulled Snell in the 8th, and it almost fell apart. It was like, yeah, he learned his lesson from the other one, because we couldn't touch Snell. I don't know why he pulled him.
I don't know either. And it was the thing I kept taking away from those games was, holy cow, the Dodgers are good.
Yeah. Well, and they are, but they're. I think again, I don't know if it was our hitting or inability or whatever, but those 2 pitchers were amazing. And as we've seen now in the World Series, we're now into Game 3 and it's 1-1. Game 3 is tonight. Right? Yeah, tonight.
All the more reason to hurry up and get this recorded.
Yeah, right, exactly. With Game 3, it's we saw what we knew, which is if you can get to their bullpen, they're a very, very average team.
Yeah.
And we just couldn't get to their bullpen.
Yeah.
That means Snell and Yamamoto just crushed us. So
good point.
It is what it is.
All right.
There's always next year, right?
Yes, there's always next year. And, we were talking about President Trump, things that are going on at the national level, the international level too. Yeah. One of the first things that I wanted to talk to you about as far as issues that are going on is this idea of the government shutdown.
Yeah.
And I want to say it was 12 times now that Democrats voted to keep the government closed.
Yeah. So
where
far.
are we at on this?
So far,
So far, yeah.
And some would say that it's either political theater or an exercise in futility to keep bringing it up so that the Democrats, but frankly, I think every other day, check the temperature and see what they're feeling, how they're doing, because I mean, when I can tell you from being in the legislature, you're somewhat at the mercy of your leaders, and not so much that they tell you what to do, but what are they saying and how is that being received in your district? And for the Democratic leaders to go out and say, look, this is our leverage. We are going to use poor families who are not going to get paychecks. We're going to use military families who will not get paid.
Yeah.
People we ask to defend we're using them as our leverage to what? Make sure that illegal aliens get health care?
That's right. It's pretty sick to see that they're just using people as pawns.
Absolutely. I am stunned that this is still a viable party and that people still, I mean, I understand that there's just, especially if all you do is get your news from MSNBC and the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel, fine. I mean, you don't know any different. So you're ignorant and I'm not going to have a problem with that. But if you actually are just objectively stepping back and looking at this, I mean, the continuing resolutions have basically been the way we've run this government for a decade.
At least.
So this is not, and it's not like the Republicans put any Christmas tree ornaments on this. It's like, we'll just keep it going so that we can continue. And they have drawn the line. And in the Senate, those are the rules. You got to have 60 to stop debate. And that's been the case forever.
Well, and I think along the lines of that, and taking the risk of getting a little bit wonky, I'm going to roll in a clip that I got from Senator Johnson when he was on the floor last week. He was trying to convince the Democrats to get this through cloture so that they could have a debate and have a conversation again. And that's really all that the Republicans in the Senate are asking for.
Right.
Let's get this through cloture. And he made some very good points, I thought, about the way that the process is supposed to work.
Yep.
We get through cloture, we have debate. And I think the way he put it was so well. He said, okay, so here's my version of what this can look like. Then we get through cloture and you bring your amendments, we have conversations, and we perfect it.
Yep.
It's just one person's idea as the way it's written now,
right.
But then you get everyone else's in there through a debate and the amendment process,
right.
And you perfect the bill or, to craft it properly.
Correct.
So that everybody, maybe it's not a win-win for everybody, but at least everybody walks away with something.
Right.
You don't get everything you want, but you get some of it. And I talked about it over the podcast this weekend. It's, this they got to get past this idea of it's their way or no way. That has been the mentality of the Democrats all along, and they lost the election.
Yeah,
they haven't come to terms with the fact that they lost the election.
Right, exactly.
Elections have consequences, as you have reminded me for decades.
Many times, yes. Yeah, especially going back to Obama. That we saw the consequences of that election. Yep. No, you're absolutely right, and it's still supposed to be the rule of the majority. I mean, that's democracy is the rule of the majority. And essentially what cloture does is provides the minority to have their voice. And they should. I mean, even when I was in the majority in the legislature, we knew that the Democrats needed to have their ability to speak their mind. And we didn't really have time frame on debate. We didn't limit it. They could filibuster if they wished. They've now put some time frames on it. So it's a little different in the assembly now. But back in the day, Mark Pocans of the world would talk. I mean, he literally pull up a blue book and just read from the blue book. It was just, and that's the way it is. But the minority gets to have their say. Ultimately, though, the majority gets to rule. And in this situation, they will as well. I think what the Democrats have done is I think they've miscalculated the idea that for years and years and years and decades going back, they've had the abilities to simply go out and know that the mainstream media was going to just carry their side of the story.
Exactly.
Just talk about, how horrible it is that the Republicans have shut down government and all this kind of stuff. And I don't believe that the Democrats today fully understand that we're not getting our news from mainstream media anymore. Some people actually are getting the news from you and me, God forbid.
That's right. It's crazy to think, but you're right. I mean, podcasts are a big reason why we won the election last year.
Absolutely. And and the reason is we can get past the mainstream media bias filter.
Yes.
And we can actually get it to people to make up their own minds. We'll tell you the information. You make up your own mind.
Yes.
So yes, do you need 60 to close the debate? Sure. we'll close debate on that, and then we'll go in and we'll pass and work on the bill. Have the discussion of the bill, but that's not going to happen. So,
well, and like I said, the reason I bring it up is because I was just so impressed at the way Senator Johnson put that. Let's get through closure, have amendments, and perfect this bill.
Yes.
That was just so well said, because that's the collegial nature that it's supposed to work in.
We're going to come a long way in terms of including furloughed workers. So again, what I'm suggesting is the way to do it. And by the way, this could be a wonderful example for this body. Working on a piece of legislation that, again, you bring it to the floor. We filed it. I know it got Rule 14, but we're doing it the right way. We're going to ask for a cloture vote on it. Get it on the floor, open it up to amendments, perfect it. See what the body of the Senate wants to do with this piece of legislation that, again, we probably agree 95% of it or higher. The way to do it is, when I offer my bill and we vote on cloture, vote for cloture. Let's get on the bill. Let's start discussing today. Maybe if we're so successful, maybe if we find the differences are so slight, we can pass it by UC later in the day.
Right.
But this us versus them, and it's our way or no way kind of mentality that the Democrats have, it's going to get us nowhere.
I completely agree. And I don't know when, well, I know a little bit of when it changed. Social media and immediate access to what's going on the floor. The C-SPAN started it, and then, moving along those lines. For people to know exactly what you're doing, what you're saying, what you're working on at the moment that you're doing it.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, you don't really want to see hot dogs being made. You don't want to see legislation being made. There's a lot of discussion of, well, if you want 4, I can give you 3, and like, well, I want 5. Well, now I'm down to 2. So it's that kind of back and forth discussion. And it, since that isn't really behind closed doors, that's not really, just in between colleagues anymore, since that's, on Twitter and it's on X and it's on whatever, that has changed a lot of everything. And the most extreme on both sides have an outpaced ability to really affect the discussion and the debate. And so that's, I think, caused some serious concerns.
That's a good point. I never really thought about it, but if you watch C-SPAN during the speeches and stuff, you'll see the senators and the congressmen are on their phones the whole time.
Yep.
So they're either like chatting with their staff, or they're getting Twitter people from their district saying, "Hey, wait, I just heard this. You better not go there." It could be anything.
Right.
But you make a great point. That maybe we need to get back to having a little bit more privacy in these negotiations so that they can get more done.
A little bit. I knew when it all changed. I think I've mentioned this on this podcast before, but I knew it all changed back in 1997, 98, something like that, when we had first gotten laptops. And I was learning this thing called email, dating myself a little, but we were learning all this stuff. And we were being carried live, the radio broadcasts of what was going on in the assembly.
Yeah, now we have the Whiz-Eye right in Madison.
Yeah, right. You got everything. You have complete access. But back in the day, it was just really kind of what was going on, on radio. And I'm sitting there and I'm on my email, and all of a sudden an email pops up from Sandy Heidel, who is a wonderful woman, lives on Bryce Prairie. She and Ray are terrific, terrific people, good Republicans who have supported me, but are also strong conservationists and do wonderful things for the community. But Sandy popped up because we were talking about some DNR issue, and popped up with "Hey, you should say this." And I was like, "What?" Because I don't want to admit this. I didn't admit it at the time, but I wasn't really paying attention to the debate. So I was like, I should say that because of what? And I started listening. I'm like, oh, she's hearing what's going on.
Fascinating.
And this was her response. I was like, it's all changed now. Now everything's changed. If a constituent could tell me exactly what's going on at the moment and what I should be doing, without really knowing any of the context of what's going on, what amendments have been brought up, what debate has occurred off the screen, off the radio, without any of that kind of stuff, it all changed. And I'm not suggesting it should be behind closed doors. I'm not, the transparency is fine, but it does change the dynamic considerably, and it gives power to the AOCs of the world.
Yeah, I think you're right. It helps empower the fringes more than anything else.
Yeah. Well, and the original fringe person who took advantage of it was when Newt Gingrich understood what special orders would be in C-SPAN, that the TV was going to be on, and during special orders of the Congress, of the House, you can say whatever you want. Go back and watch Newt Gingrich. I mean, he would spend half hour dissertations on what's wrong with government, and people would tune in and go, "Holy cow, that's really." But it was a free opportunity for him to tell the world, and he understood the power of that before anybody.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, being able to recognize that too, I remember when it was like the early 90s when I first really understood the power of the internet.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I was watching CNN.
Yeah.
And then on the laptop watching CNN, and they were talking about what was it? The coup in Russia.
Okay.
When the tanks went through Moscow.
Okay.
And I was online, just experimenting with the internet, the first portions of the internet, like a bulletin board system, all text. Right. And somebody jumped onto this chat that I was on and said he could hear tanks walk down his street in Moscow.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm on the other side of the world.
Right.
And this was of course, this is the early 90s. So
yeah.
That was unheard of before then.
Right.
And nowadays you got people doing Zoom calls with each other, when they're on a ship overseas, the Navy personnel. Yep. It's fascinating where we're at with technology now.
Truly
but
is.
You make a good point. It has impacts in the way negotiations work.
Indeed. And it's, and the technology of today, artificial intelligence, is something that I have, as I've talked about, scares the life out of me at what could happen especially with politics. But, we're seeing a little bit of Hollywood, and the actors are certainly losing their minds over the fact that, wait, that guy's been dead and you have him talking in a movie?
There's an AI actress who now has her own agent.
Right. Isn't that amazing?
She's a computer-generated actress.
Right, right. And she has her own agent, and the Scarlett Johanssons of the world are going, she's not real, that's not, you're not. So, yeah,
it's amazing where we're at.
It truly is.
We don't need Hollywood kooks anymore.
No. And again, even this week, we had Trump ripping on Canada for supposedly altering a Ronald Reagan, commercial. That's kid stuff compared to what AI could do today. You could have Ronald Reagan, you could have George Washington saying whatever you want.
That's right.
So
that's right.
It's amazing.
No, it is a fascinating world that we live in now with the technology, and making sure that the culture stays up to date with it as well as the science. Because, and I think it was the state legislature just passed. I can't remember the details on it, but it was something about you can't even create AI for is it sexting and stuff or something?
Yeah, something like that. They're doing what they're kind of grasping at straws as to what they can do to try and govern AI right now. You're seeing it in every state.
Yeah.
You're going to see it a bit in Congress. Their government, as is always the case, is reacting. So they're going to be a long way behind.
Well, and at least it took them a little longer than I would have liked.
Yeah.
But at least they're catching up, whether it's an enhancer onto existing laws,
right,
or whatever it takes. There have got to be consequences for abusing these technologies.
Absolutely. Yep. And destroying people.
And destroying people's lives and reputations. That's a great point.
Right.
Well, and I think that's why it fascinates me too, because you see President Trump has been going after a lot of news agencies because of the way they cover what they think are facts, but are not.
Correct. Yeah, correct.
And so he keeps going after them for, I'm drawing a blank. What are the terms?
Fake news, and I don't know where.
Fake news is what he calls them, but the legal term of
libel, slander.
Libel and slander, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, okay. We saw it even, and you're seeing the reaction to it. This week, J.B. Pritzker did an interview with Brett Baer. And Brett Baer said, Governor, how do you comment about the fact that Chicago is the murder capital of the country? There are more murders in Chicago. And he's like, that's not true.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, well, but Governor, the numbers show this. And he goes, those numbers are wrong. It's just not true. Just flat out denial. Empirically, we know that that's true.
Right.
He can just deny it. And in today's day and age of information, of, where we get our information, anybody can say, you know what, that's not true. And of course, you're Fox News, so you're going to say that. And all of J.B. Pritzker's supporters will go, yeah, the governor's right. He's, Fox News is absolutely lying. Despite the fact that you can show empirically that Chicago is the murder capital of the country, doesn't matter. J.B. Pritzker said it wasn't true.
Well, I think it's even more diabolical than that. I think Biden proved it during his White House that he could manipulate the statistics.
Yes.
So they would tell people, well, just don't have a stat, don't make that arrest.
Right.
Or don't mention that race of the person who was getting arrested.
Right. Yep.
They would manipulate the statistics.
Yep.
So now we don't even know what we can trust.
Right. Right. And as we've been doing for a long time, and as George Orwell warned us, certain words can't be used. Illegal aliens was just something that, who was it? The governor this week just freaked out about the use of illegal aliens, or maybe it was the mayor of Chicago. Maybe it was the mayor of Chicago.
I bet it was.
Yeah, it was like, was that some sort of scientific phrase that you're, or science fiction phrase you're using? Or is that some sort of racist thing you've got? I'm like, no, this is, very clearly laying out the details of what's going on and who's doing it. And
even on top of that, somebody in Prairie du Chien, when I was at that protest, having a conversation with some of them, they said they didn't like the use of that term, and I said, well, then you should take it up with the people who wrote the law,
right.
Because that is literally what they said in the law. Illegal alien is a legal term,
right? Exactly, and we have clips and quotes from Schumer and Pelosi and every other Democratic leader using illegal aliens, defining illegal aliens, and saying we can't allow illegal aliens in this country.
And now trying to completely, redo all of that history and pretend like it never happened.
Exactly.
Oh, it's crazy where we're at with these kinds of things.
Indeed. But we keep mulling through.
We do. Well, and that brings me to a few things about state politics that I wanted to have a conversation with you about. Let's start with Eric Toney. He just came out and announced that he's going to run for Attorney General. Of course, Josh Kaul also made the announcement that he's going to run for re-election.
Right.
How are things looking?
I think it's a great matchup. I think it's going to be interesting to test what's going to happen in Wisconsin as far as just whether or not we can get a Republican vote without Donald Trump at the top of the ticket.
Right.
And I'm not even sure it's enough for Donald Trump to come out and endorse, to show up, anything like that. Will you show up? When and some of the things that we've had challenges with is a lot of the Republican strength that he's had across the northern part of the state, not necessarily showing up. Now we're going to probably have a gubernatorial candidate, our nominee
from the northern part.
From the northern part.
Yep.
So that might help a bit.
By the way, quick advertisement. I'm going to have Congressman Tom Tiffany in here. Probably it'll be next week that I get to air that conversation.
Awesome. So I will tell you this: you're going to get Eric Toney too, because
excellent.
Eric called me today, and I had contributed to his campaign last time, so we wanted to talk, or he wanted to talk, and of course ask for money again, and I understand that's fine.
Right.
I gave him some advice as to how I think I would run the election, and encouraged him to do that. And I said, but I have a request. I have a friend who's got a podcast, and you need to be on it. He said, absolutely, give me my number.
Oh man, thank you so much.
So we'll get Eric Toney on there. Eric is very smart. He's a terrific attorney. He actually will follow the Constitution and the law, which is, I know, novel, a crazy idea, but
isn't it funny we have to say that?
Yeah.
Like that used to be just the thing.
Yeah. Yep. And I told him, I said, Eric, my concern today, and I've talked about this, is we no longer have the rule of law in Wisconsin, we have the rule of four.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, that fact concerns me considerably. Mainly because my initial reaction is, if the conservatives ever get the court back, then we need to do it back to them. It's like, well, that's no way to govern. That's no way to run a country. It's no way to run a railroad. So, but that's what we're going to see is the whims and the desires of these four women are going to determine what's going to happen in this country. Or in this state.
In the state.
And I didn't bring up the gender, to be sexist. It's just, I know there are four women who have made it very clear that, they're going to change, and especially, but that being said, I think Eric Toney and Josh Kaul will be a great matchup. It'll test whether or not there is still that Trump derangement syndrome that's strong enough to turn out the votes, even when he's not up there, because we certainly have the ability to pull out Trump voters when he's at the top of the ticket. They always will bring out the Trump deranged people. I mean, I'm sure that if Trump came out and said he supports puppies, they'd be killing puppies tomorrow. I mean, they've just lost their minds. But
it is insane.
Yeah. But that being said, I think Eric and Josh, it will be a very good It will be a very good test of just the social issues that are out there.
Yes.
I mean, you know, Josh Call is suing the president for making sure that he keeps the government going. It's like,
is that the proper role for the Department of Justice?
Right.
See, I think that's where I'm really looking forward to having a conversation with Eric, because like you said, he's law and order kind of guy.
Absolutely.
That is what we need. Someone who focuses on law and order, not
Yeah.
political BS bumper sticker issues.
Correct. DA of Fond du Lac County just has got a great criminal track record. The one thing that drove me nuts with Brad Schimmel is that he somehow allowed a judge from Dane County to get to the right of him on law and order. I mean, that's absolutely unforgivable. You do not run there are thousands of examples of the lunacy of Dane County that you could bring up and show that these judges have zero interest in protecting people.
Yeah.
They just want to coddle every criminal there is, make sure every illegal alien. I mean, we've got a judge in Milwaukee who's been arrested for trying to hide an illegal alien in her courtroom.
Yep.
I mean, from ICE agents. The judicial branch in this state has lost its mind, and we need some sanity restored. We need Maria Lazar as our Supreme Court nominee and justice.
That
in
is
April.
the next name that was on
Okay,
my
good.
list to talk about.
And we need Eric Toney next November for sure.
No, and perfect segue, because our friend Doug from Monroe County wrote a nice letter in CooleyConservatives.com. So if you get a chance, go check that out.
I will.
But he extolled the ethics of Maria Lazar. I watched her video, the one she put out on YouTube. I'm seriously impressed.
Yeah.
This is a lady who is serious about the rule of law.
Yeah.
Not conservatism, not liberalism. She's about the rule of law.
Yep.
And I pray to God we can get someone like her in that office.
Right. And unfortunately, in Supreme Court races in the state of Wisconsin, the idea of rule of law is a quaint little notion that has nothing to do with the election.
And it's so sad too.
It's absolutely criminal. But you know, you have an entire group of people, you know, an entire demographic, an entire party who just wants to know how you're going to vote on abortion, how you're going to do this, how, you know, gerrymandering, how you're going to make sure that Democrat issues are pushed forward through the courts.
Exactly.
You know, not interpret the law. Not determine, you know, well, this law was, I may not agree with the way this law was written, but I do know it went through both houses and the governor signed it. So I have to support that and say, this is the way it was, you know, I'll interpret it the way it was written. They have zero interest in that.
Yeah.
None whatsoever.
And I think the way you put it in one of our previous episodes, you said, if somebody comes in as a judge and even says, look, I don't agree with this at all, but it is the law and I have to enforce it, or I have to rule in this way.
Right.
Send it back to the legislature and fix it.
Yep.
The legislature should fix it. I thought the way you put that was brilliant, because that is how the system is supposed to work.
Correct.
You send it back to the legislature. They're the ones who come up with the wording. The judges just do the interpretation.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's why, as we've talked about in the past as well, in the Federalist Papers, they talked about the tyranny of the judiciary.
Yeah.
You know, if they decide that they just know better, you know, either that one judge, that panel of 3, or the 4 on our Supreme Court, if they simply decide that they know better than the 132 members of the legislature, the governor, who have all been duly elected to represent their pockets of the state and have their voice in a law that has been passed and signed into law, if they simply think they know better, that, you know, I just don't agree with that law and I'm going to change it from here, that is called the tyranny of the judiciary. You no longer have rule of law. And let me make it very crystal clear. In Wisconsin, we no longer have the rule of law. We lost that. And I don't know how we're going to get it back. And people will say, oh, well, you know, there's just, that might be the way you interpret one thing. You have one case, just one case where they don't follow the rule of law and it's gone.
Yeah.
You know, I don't care if they've done it 10 other times where they've said, well, that's the law and we're going to support that. But this one, no. That is a complete breakdown in the judicial role. And it's something, unfortunately, in Wisconsin, we're under the tyranny of the judiciary.
I remember when I was a young software engineer and I was working for a company that, you know, we were kind of trying to figure it out as we went along. We didn't really know a few answers of things.
Just a couple of kids with stars in your eyes.
Just a bunch of kids who didn't know what we were doing.
Right.
But we went into this company with, you know, great intentions. And my boss pulled me aside one time and he said, whatever you do, don't lose the trust of the client.
Right.
Tell them the truth, be honest. If we don't know something, tell them we don't know something yet.
Great advice.
But here's what we're going to try to do to figure it out.
Yeah.
As we're building these software systems. And the way he put it was, it's like a piggy bank. You keep filling it little by little, penny by penny, dime by dime, and eventually it gets full up. But just takes one little tap with a hammer and the whole thing comes crashing apart.
Very true.
And it takes a long time to rebuild it then.
Yes.
Trust is like that. And I think the judicial system, this is where we're at.
Mm-hmm.
The trust in the judicial system has been smashed.
Yep.
And it is going to take a very long time to rebuild that trust.
Right. And what kills me is it's been by design. The George Soros, I mean, that's the boogeyman, of course, but his ilk, that group, decided very clearly that they couldn't win the legislature. They couldn't win the hearts and minds of the people anymore. So they were going to elect judges that, frankly, you don't know where they stand. You don't know if they're Republican, Democrat. You don't know or care if they're going to allow transsexuals in our daughters' locker rooms. You have no idea if that's going to be the case until all of a sudden they do it. And we're like, how did this happen? How did we get here? It's through the bastardization of the judiciary that has provided for this ability. It's not the laws necessarily that are out there. It's simply the executive orders of governors and the judiciary who are interpreting the Constitution and interpreting laws in ways that they simply aren't true.
Right.
And that's the tyranny.
Well, I think one really, really good example of that everybody is aware of is the way they weaponize the Department of Justice and our legal system against President Trump.
Yep.
It's things like that. And now, I mean, we see it to a lesser extent, but just as impactful in Wisconsin with the ruling that they made about departments in the bureaucracy have rule-making authority now all of a sudden.
Yeah, with no oversight.
With no oversight.
Right.
So the legislators, the people who are supposed to have oversight, you know, we the people, we get to vote for our representatives. The representatives do our bidding kind of thing.
Yep.
Not anymore.
Nope.
Now it belongs to the bureaucracy because of the way these judges have ruled.
The state, if you take the state statutes and you stack them up, they're going to probably get up to your knees, maybe up to your belt line, you know, something like that. If you take the administrative rules that are out there in all the agencies and you compile them all, they wouldn't fit in this room.
Oh.
I mean, it's, and I get it. You know, administrative rules are also helping to interpret a particular law. And the best example I've given in the past is the Schoolhouse Rock of, you know, I'm just a bill. Well, you know, it said that school buses have to stop at a railroad crossing. That was the bill that was getting passed in Schoolhouse Rock. Okay, that's great. An administrative rule says, well, you got to stop 50 feet beforehand. You got to open the door. That wasn't all in the law.
The standard operating procedures that go along with the what is it? The spirit of the law kind of stuff.
Right, exactly. So it's, you know, they put that, but you don't then also say, oh, and the bus driver has to be transsexual and it has to be this and all that, you know, all the other social craziness that they like to just jam into this stuff. That was never part of the statute and the intention of an administrative rule. And you're right. That's exactly where we're running into serious problems along those lines with no oversight.
Yeah, and the oversight was the thing that allows we the people to have a say in it because through our representatives, we can say, look, we don't think this is the way it should be going.
Right.
Our representatives go back to the well or whatever you call it what do you call it in the assembly? Just the assembly floor?
Yeah, the assembly floor.
Okay, so you take it to the assembly floor. They either craft a new law or amend one that's already there and fix it.
Yep.
But now they just do whatever they want.
Yeah.
Because the governor said so.
Right.
And the judges said,
the court backed it up. Yep. Right.
And it's sad. It really is sad where we're at. And I think that's probably just about all the time we're going to take here today.
Oh, wow.
Because I know you've got some plans.
Well, and we've got a big World Series game tonight.
And the game is on tonight.
We're still glowing from the Packers win last night. So.
That, man, I'm telling you that. I rarely stay up past 10.
Yeah. That was worth it.
But last night it was worth it. That was definitely worth it.
Yeah. If we can see that second half Packer team show up more often, I have a lot of hope.
Oh, and how many sacks did we get? Like 3 or 4?
We got 3 sacks.
3 sacks. Yeah. That was a great game.
But Aaron Rodgers was rushed a lot. So he was, you know. And yes, Jordan Love still threw up some wounded ducks, but they happened to fall in our hands. So yay.
It all worked out in the end.
Exactly.
Mike, thank you so much for your time.
Anytime, Chris. Good to see you again. We'll see you next month.
Take care.
All right, buddy.
Hi, thanks for checking out this episode. If you like this content, then please visit cooleyconservatives.com and click the Buy Me a Coffee option to leave us a tip. And don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Truth Social. Oh, and you can get our content in your email inbox once a week by subscribing at cooleyconservatives.com. Thanks again. Take care and God bless.
I want you